WRHU at Super Bowl 58, Yaw Bonsu, now joined by NFL on Fox Sideline reporter. She is one of the leading voices of the UFC. No matter the platform, it is Megan Olivi. Megan,
Hi.
Thank you so much for taking the time.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me.
How's the Super Bowl experience been so far? I know you're a Las Vegas local, so
Yeah.
you're used to having big events in the city, but this is the first time the Super Bowl is here, so how's that been
It
for
is,
you?
and it's so great. I'm really excited for the city to be able to have this opportunity to kind of show off. The stadium is unbelievable, and this is a city that's made for huge events. We've got massive hotels that are beautiful with these big convention spaces. People aren't on top of each other. So I'm really excited for the city to shine, and for me personally, it's been great because I just jump in the car and I'm here, or I go back home and I'm with my husband and my dog, so it's like the best of both worlds.
What do you think this means to the fans? In a lot of big sports cities, you obviously have seen the Super Bowl before, but here in Las Vegas, it's been a long time coming. Over 4 years ago, Las Vegas Raiders, Allegiant Stadium, those weren't even a thing.
Exactly.
So what do you think it means to the fans to have the Super Bowl here?
I think it means so much. This is a city that relies heavily on tourism. We, suffered a lot during COVID. Things were shut down, businesses struggled, and then also we had, some horrible events on October 1st that, were difficult right before our first ever pro sports team was going to have a game. And so to be able to see the growth that's come from it, the benefits to individuals, to families, to businesses, it's just been really amazing. I think this means everything because for so long, Vegas was kind of laughed at to be a sporting city. And now they're talking about bringing baseball and basketball, and there's all sorts of things besides the Golden Knights and the Raiders that exist here as well in the sporting space that I think it's really beautiful. And it's so cool for Las Vegas residents to not have to jump on a plane to go see a great sporting event, to just be able to be here and enjoy things as they would in any other major city.
For a long time, Las Vegas, or it still is known as the fighting capital of the
Yeah.
world. So all of these leagues, not only the NFL, but eventually when the MLB breaks in, the NBA, WNBA, what can they take away from how the UFC has conducted business here in the city?
It's a great question, and I think the answer is embrace the fans, embrace the city. The UFC does things really well in terms of having, especially for big fight weeks, events all over the strip so that there's some free, there's some paid, there's some big, there's some small, that everybody can participate a little bit. And I think that's what makes us so unique. That's why people love our athletes. They're able to kind of reach out and talk to them, to be able to shake their hands. I think all of that is so important. And so I believe that for these major teams that are going to come or are here and trying to figure out their footing, to be able to engage the community that lives here and will be your support system day in and day out, I think that is the biggest thing that they could do.
And as an NFL sideline reporter, you are obviously up close and personal with these players. When you think about the San Francisco 49ers versus the Kansas City Chiefs, what is that matchup like in your head?
It's a really great question because we were just talking about this. It seems like, they just played a couple of years ago, but I think there's only 6 players that are the same from both rosters that did the turnover. And so to be able to look at these young teams, to see someone like Brock Purdy in this position, I think is not just great for the game, but it's also kind of inspirational for everybody to watch. You don't have to be a football fan to understand what that means, that he was Mr. Irrelevant and now he is starting quarterback in the Super Bowl. And of course, you've got Mahomes and Kelsey, who are the powerhouses, that they almost hit too much greatness and now they're kind of getting the hate on the other side.
Yes,
You know what I mean?
that is
We only
exactly
want you
how
to
you
get to
described
this
it.
peak,
That
but
is
then once
exactly
you
how you
pass it,
described
we don't like you anymore. So I just think it's great, and I can truly say I think there are great people and players involved with each organization, and it's for me really fun to watch these teams. The Niners, who everyone thought from the beginning would be here, and then the Chiefs, who battled back to be here. I think it's great.
So as someone who's one of the leading voices in combat sports with the UFC, can you compare Patrick Mahomes' greatness to any specific fighter?
Oh, that's a good question.
Somebody who was great right out the gate, who maybe achieved so much greatness that now people are hating on them. Who would that fighter be for you?
Oh my gosh, that's a really good question. Well, it's kind of oh my gosh, let's see. Who's at 55? I was going to say Demetrius Johnson because Demetrius was dominating so much at one point that they were like, he's not fighting anyone good, but he really was. He was just that good. And so I think people like to give him his flowers. I don't think he gets as many flowers as he deserves. But I do think that once he hit a certain point, they were like, he's not fighting anyone. But he really was. He was just that talented.
And what are some of the common traits that you think Demetrius Johnson and Patrick Mahomes share?
I think that, it's funny because, yes, those two individuals, but oftentimes I think that fighters and football players are so similar as well. I think there's this hunger within them to prove something. And whether that's to themselves or to the general public that's watching, there is like a no end point, because I'm striving for this goal and I got there, but that's not good enough now. Now I have another goal. Whereas a lot of people are really happy to get to that point and they're happy to stay there. And I think that's what keeps the greats being great, is that they're not just okay with this much, no matter how great the accolade is. They just want to continue down those paths and maybe even reach for things that people thought weren't existent or weren't possible or haven't been achieved before. There's nothing that can't be in their minds. That's what makes them some of the best.
When you talk about media, it's hard enough breaking into NFL media or UFC media, but you're obviously doing both at the same time. What has worked for you throughout your career to allow you to reach the point you're at now?
It's a good question. I think for me, it's just been about doing the work. I think it's about being as informed as you possibly can be on anything that might possibly ever come up. But then also being easy to work with, being able to roll with the punches. We get asked all the time, hey, can you quick do this? Can you fill 60 seconds for that? Can you actually take us out of commercial break? Whatever it might be, just knowing that you've done the work so you can say yes to those things. That makes you a good team player. It makes you easy to work with. And I always say, taking each step as it comes is important. Skipping steps doesn't help with anything. So to be able to say, oh, yeah, well, I used to do this back in the day, that experience only grows and snowballs into something bigger. So for me, it's just about trying to be as informed and intelligent as I possibly can on whatever the subject matter may be, but then also rolling with the punches and not letting any moment be too big or too small.
Did you always have that mentality even when you were coming up in the industry?
Yeah, I always just felt like I didn't know I wanted to be in broadcasting until I was almost done with my undergrad. So I wasn't in this prestigious broadcasting program. I was a poli-sci major. And then I went to graduate school because I knew I needed to have a degree to back it up. But there are millions of people who want to do what we get to do every day. Yeah. And I don't take that for granted. So I've always kind of treated every day like an audition. And I still do to this day. Every day I have to show up and earn my jobs. And I can only do that by working as hard as I can and being kind to people and easy to work with. Those are the things I can control, and that's always what I focused on, because especially early in your career, there's lots of hurdles, there's lots of no's, there's lots of rejection, and that can be difficult to take and spin into a positive. But if you learn how to kind of just roll with things or flow with things and say, all right, this isn't for me right now, but I'm going to revisit it. I wanted to be on the UFC broadcast for years before I got a shot, and then I got a shot and kind of did terrible, and I had to just keep working at it. And so I've just treated every day like an audition and went from there.
And my final two questions for you. First off, can I get a Super Bowl prediction? A lot of people are calling it a tight game.
Yeah, well, I would be the same. I can't give a prediction, but I would say I think it will be maybe a closer game than bettors are expecting. Okay. I hope it is. I really hope it is, for the game of football, for both of these teams and for the city of Las Vegas and everyone who will be in attendance. I hope it's a great, competitive, close game. And for all these players, I think they're so evenly matched in talent that I have a hard time when I see people get so maligned on the internet after bad performances or whatever. And this is the biggest stage that they could possibly be on. So I hope everybody is at their very best, truly.
And finally, this is a college radio station. We have a bunch of aspiring broadcasters.
Yes.
So can you look into the camera and give your best piece of advice?
I forgot that camera was on, so that was probably weird. My best piece of advice: do the work. You will see people be fast-tracked. You will see things happen where you're like, why can't that be me? I started out getting coffee and making copies at 5 o'clock in the morning every day of my senior year of college. Do the work. I promise you will learn something from every step of the way, and just be easy to work with. Nothing is too big, nothing is too small. If you can keep those two things in your mind, that path is going to have still some bumps, but it's not going to be nearly as bad as it would be otherwise. You want to make sure when you have those opportunities, you're ready. And when you do the work and you take the right steps, you will be ready when they come.
NFL on Fox Sideline reporter and one of the leading voices of the UFC as a UFC reporter. It is Megan Olivi. Megan, I wish you went to Hofstra instead of Seton Hall.
I know, I did get into Hofstra. I'm so sorry.
But still, thank you so much for taking the time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Enjoy the week.
Well. Thank you.